Hello, you all know what one of these is, don't you? It's a bandsaw, 6x4 bandsaw. Now I bought this probably about getting on 35-40 years ago, and this is an Alpine brand made in Taiwan, marketed in England. It's served me well over the years, and I've basically been doing a few little jobs to try and get it working better. It wasn't working very well. It was cutting off square and generally not very good. So I've been working on it. It's actually nearing completion now, but I didn't really do an intro, so this is an intro. So I'll show you all the little bits and bobs that I've done. What I've still got left to do is repair the guard, because the little tab there has broken off and this was all bent. So I've still got to do that. Now this will come off because it's slotted there, so it should, if I undo those two bolts, it should just come off. So that's, hopefully that's my little intro. You'll see all the clips and then I'll repair that. One of the things that I just wanted to mention was when you have it in the bandsaw mode, a lot of the chips and everything, the little filings, fall down onto the motor, and on this motor is ventilation slots. So years ago I made this little shield. It's only a piece of sheet metal, snipped and then drilled and bolted onto those two bolts, and over the years I think that saved that motor a lot of grief really. It's saved all those bits from falling into the motor because there's ventilation slots there, like I said. So anyway, I just thought it worth mentioning that. It only takes 5 minutes, bit of sheet metal. Anyway, okay, let's carry on, and I'll come back when I've done a bit more. I just wanted to acknowledge that I did double check. I checked this video here from Zainudu, Rob in Australia, because I remember reading this a long time ago, and I did get some helpful things from there. And the other one that I looked at was this one here, 805 Road King, how to adjust bandsaw 4x6, and I found that quite useful as well, although I did deviate from the squaring advice with this in the end. But I wanted to acknowledge that I had looked at this one and this one before. I've just had a quick look at some of the others actually. They're all very good, so I'm wondering how much mine is going to actually add. But anyway, hey ho, you know, you just do what you do, don't you? Anyway, thanks to Rob, and thanks to this chap here, 805 Road King. I did find those videos helpful. Hello, here's one of the guides on the milling machine. I've actually just sort of finished truing it all up. This was filed by me years ago, but what I've just done, I know it looks like I'm close to the cutter, but I'm not, is I've just milled the two faces flat and then trimmed up the inside edges. And now what I'm going to do is actually face the top down, otherwise it'll be touching on the top instead of on the two side faces. It needs to touch on the two side faces. I'm just going to do that now. I won't do it on camera because it's hard to hold the camera, but I'll do that and then show you again. It's not the most rigid of setups, but it is cutting it. I'm getting short of tooling basically for this little mill. It came with some tooling when I bought it, and I've damaged various bits of tooling and blunted them, and this is just a 2 flute. I think it's at a slotting mill actually, but that's all I've got. That's just a 15th thou cut, but with it sticking up that far, it's not very rigid, you know, so just have to do it little bit by little bit. The flat on the right hand side was a lot higher than the flat on the left hand side, so I milled the flat on the right hand side and then got that nice and cleaned up, then went to the left hand side and it wasn't even touching, so I had to do the left hand side and then redo the right hand side. Just so you got an idea about, this is how I kind of set it up. I just trued the edge of the casting there and the edge of that square to the back of the mill there. I know, sorry for my mill's in such a mess. I'm not a very tidy worker, but then I just used the little square there to square the side up down there like that, so I'm not in shot there. And these things aren't mega critical, so hopefully that'll be good enough. I did file this face on the back and these 2 faces, clean them because they are milled from the factory. This face isn't milled. But like I say, I milled that side and cleaned it up, and then it wasn't even touching this side, so I had to clean this face up and then come back and go deeper on that one. So I had to take some off the top. So I'm just going to check that the top piece sits on the 2 faces here and not in the middle. I need to check that now. Not sure if this will be able to see it, but it needs to be able to see. Oh, that's it, yeah, that's good, isn't it? You see daylight through the middle part, so it's sitting down on the 2 outside edges. Okay, no. Ooh, struggling with the light there. There's I've put a new bearing in there. Okay, I'll show you some of the bearings and things. I bought new bearings. These bearings are FAG, which I believe is German, but it actually says made in Portugal on the thing. So those are FAG, and these little pins, I actually just picked the end that didn't look so massively deformed and just pressed them out on the press. And then I've cleaned that end up there. Oops. Cleaned that end up and just pushed it in, and then I've left that end deformed and just tapped it home till it fitted in. I think it'll be okay. Now the important thing about this is that you see that the hex relative to the centre part of the bearing there, down there. I don't know if it's focused or not. That one is not eccentric. Hang on just a sec. Try this on macro. That one there is not eccentric. You can see that the inner race of the bearing is equal to all the flats. This one is eccentric. See, it's kind of tight there, look, and it gets bigger there. That's like those 2 sides there are the biggest amount of eccentricity. And then it's kind of the least amount there, or rather, you know, the opposite side. So you have to, this is how it goes, and this is the leading one, the one that doesn't have the table on there. So the eccentric one goes towards the outside, so that one will go there and this one will go here. So I'll put those in and then assemble it up. The other thing I've done, can you see that that's shiny in there? I've filed that inside face, and that one. That's so that the bolt that goes in there has got plenty of room to move, like that. The other thing that I did, can you see, I know this is a bit messy, but can you see that washer has a flat filed on it? I found that, and then what I did, I put a little notch opposite the flat, so when I fit this, not sure if it's the upper or lower, but what was happening was, when I had it adjusted right, the bearing wasn't going round. What I found was that it was foul in the washer there, like that. Oops. It was foul in the washer, because I needed to adjust this up, but I found that when I had it like that, and even then, you know, I had to be careful that I had a flat towards the bearing. If it had a point towards the bearing, that would stop the wheel from going round as well. So there's all those little things that need to be taken into account. So I'm going to set it up back on the machine now. I'll put the bearings in and I'll come back in a minute. This is, I've just put it together, but it's worth pointing out that you know, I might put a washer either side of that yet. I don't know, I'm not sure. That's the eccentric one, I think. And just while this here is a 1/2 inch, these here, even though it's a 3/8 UNF thread, this 9/16 spanner fits, sorry, you would expect a 9/16 to fit, but actually this 14mm fits better. And these in here, the adjusters for the eccentrics, this 12mm fits. So don't, I mean, this is about 40 years old. It was made in Taiwan. So, you know, it's worth always bearing in mind that when you buy these offshore things, you can't expect it to be exactly like you would expect from, you know, an English or American brand. Okay, and look at the surface finish on that. That's absolutely atrocious. But anyway, it's what you expect, isn't it, I suppose. Okay, back in a bit. Now, I know you'll all go mad. The light's absolutely dreadful in here, and I'm running this without the guard, but I have just adjusted the tracking so that blade's running nicely on that bottom wheel. There's no guides in place at the moment. I think it's running okay on those wheels there, and you have to adjust those two, the Allen key and the bottom nut in unison to get it so it's just right. Okay, I've decided to just kind of chivvy up the clamping bracket thing. It's got RB12 cast in there, so what I want to do is kind of create a flat surface so I can put a decent washer on the bolt that goes through, so it's got a nice surface to rest against. Just cleaning up the castings really. Back in a bit. There's the finished job. Nice flat surface there. Looks a bit, oops, sorry, looks a bit lumpy there, but it's okay. You know, a washer will get a good bite on it. I went a bit mad on that corner down there, but I backed it off a bit. It's just trying to get a flat surface. I need to just lick all these faces up with a file, just get rid of the nicks and bumps. Right, so that bit should be okay. Right, back in a bit. This nut, I don't know if you can see, but the threads are damaged. what happened was that the thread stripped out. If you look very carefully, you can see a crack down both sides. So what I did years ago was to re-tap that hole as deep as I could, and actually it goes all the way down through to the threads. So what I've just done is cleaned all that thread up on there and run it back and forth, up and down on the lathe. It runs nice and free, and I've ran a tap all the way down those threads, right the way down to the bottom. And what I've also done is machine that shoulder back there a little bit to make way for that washer, so there's a washer there for when you're tightening up. It's resting on a washer instead of just against the casting, because it was kind of mushroomed over there. And the other thing I did was just get the bolt. Now, I must have changed this bolt years ago and put in a longer bolt, and I've just ran a die up and down that bolt to make sure the threads are okay. So I'm just trying to give everything the best chance it's got. Nothing's fantastic engineering on these things, but you know, you just give it the best chance you can. I just faced that little face in there. I don't know if you can see it, I don't know if it's glaring. I just faced that little face and that little face. What I want to do is try and improve that pivot there. I'm trying to see what I can do. I'm trying to think of something. I'll be back in a bit. I want to drill this hole to a better size, one that I can make a stepped bolt, so it's well located. So I was just going to drill this on here. I thought, well, that's not very well located, so I've just positioned the table so that that drill clears there. So when I put that on there like that, so there like that, it's better supported. So I'll just drill this now. I'm gonna I can't do it while holding the camera, so back in a sec. There's the hole I've just drilled. That's 9mm. So this is my idea. Whether it works or not is another matter. I just found a bolt there, good quality bolt, and I'll put a washer on it and a nut. So what I'm going to do is turn that nut till it's a good fit in that 9mm hole. That's 5/16, which is roughly 8mm, so it should be like a thin skim on that. I've done those up quite tight there, so hopefully I should be able to sort of come up with something. Back in a bit. Because this is an English lathe, I converted the millimetre dimension into thou, and I've just turned it as close as I can to 355. I have just tried it, and I'll try and just get it on again with one hand, and it just goes on with no perceptible play. It feels pretty good actually. Also, the width of the height of the sort of stub there, that bit, is less than the thickness of the casting, so the bolt will tighten there. What I do need to do though is turn down the diameter of the washer, because the spot faced piece is a fair bit smaller than that. So I'll just do that by kind of eye. I skim the washer down and then skim the face, then kind of took the burrs off with a file, then I'll turn it round that way around in the chuck and just skim the front face a tiny bit and run a file on the corner. Just try and deburr it. Anyway, it goes in okay. It's a good fit. And I had to measure that gap between there, and then hold the calipers onto that face there until I came down, so I knew I was small enough to just miss it like that. and it does just miss it, and you can see it all runs nice and true. So hopefully that'll be a good pivot point for this, because what I want to do is have a stop, so that when it's against the stop, that's 90 degrees, hence needing a good pivot point there. That's the idea anyway. Okay, back in a bit. I got a block of wood and a piece of 80 grit wet and dry, and just rub this face over here. Got it, you know, so it's okay, and then I gave that face there a little rub over, and this face here as well. So that'll give it a better chance. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of oil, get a bit of oil on there and on this underside face here. So that'll be the next thing. I can't help thinking this is not the very best way to do it, but I can't think of anything better at the moment. This face here is, I know this is just rough cast, but you've got to start with something. So I'll just put that square against there, and I can just bring this, sorry, maybe I light here, bring this around so that it's just square. Bit awkward doing it one-handed, but that's good enough to start with. Because what I want to do is use this to align the blade, and what I've got a scale in there, 12-inch rule in there. So I'm kind of trying to go from first principles really, but that's what I'm going to try and do. Okay, back in a bit. I'm trying to sort of muddle my way through the next phase of the job, and what I've kind of arrived at is the idea that we're going to work from this. So I've put this square in here. Now this square is held down tight to this machined face, and you can see that the gap there is similar to the gap there. It should be the same, obviously. So this is level with the base. So what I've done, I've loosened this and clamped the bearing, as not tight but you know, snug, to the inner face of this. I've also put a shim in there so that it doesn't come down too far, because I know that when this is about flush, that's about right for the height. So this now, I've taken out the other roller. This now, the main bearing there is, this head is square like that, as far as I can tell. I can't think of a better way of doing it. Somebody will probably know better ways, but it's the best I can think of at the moment. So what I'm going to do next is use this as a datum, and then try and use the square and the straight edge to align this one to that one, this to that. So that'll be the next little thing. I'll bring you back when I think I may have got somewhere. What I want to do is flip this round so it's pointing this way, but I need to set that face in the same relationship as it is now. So what I've just done, I've just got these calipers and I've snubbed against that point, sorry, snubbed against there. I'll unlock them and do it again. I need to be able to think of a way of doing it so that it so what I'm going to do is, so I can do it when measure it again when it's turned around. So I'm holding it square against that face. Oh no, this isn't great. And I'm just going until I touch that face there. And that's set now. So I'll just tighten the thing. So that's there. So what I'll do now, I'll loosen this. This is all locked down, this piece. I'll flip this and then set it to the same measurement, so hopefully it should be coming over here at the same, you know, same distance out. This all works nice and smoothly now. I'll put this back on. This all assembles up nice and smooth, so that's pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll flip that. I might not be able to do this, but you know, you don't know till you try, do you? And then basically, I'll have to do this with two hands, but I've got to get that piece there. I'm going to have to move that piece over, but I'm going to have to reset to that same measurement. I'll have to do it with two hands, so you'll get the idea anyway. Back in a sec. I flip the thing around, and that dimension from there to there is exactly the same. So in theory that inside face is the same as it was when it was over there. And then with this loose, I held that bearing against the inner face. Now I'll be the first to admit it was really actually very difficult to hold it and get a confident feeling that it was on there. I couldn't get a clamp on this side. I was able to get a clamp on that side. I couldn't get a clamp on this side. But I've done it up in the position that it felt okay. You can see there's quite a bit of offset on this, but in theory that face, that face of that bearing and that face of that bearing are the same distance away from that. Now I'm not 100% sure I'm going about this the right way. I'm wondering whether it might be better to basically centre this, ignore that, get the blade running nice, get the blade running so it cuts straight, and then square this to the blade. We'll see. I don't know. It might come to that yet. I don't know. I've just lifted it up, and it's easy for me to do this two hands, but even by eye, that's on the bottom roller, that's on the top roller. I don't know if you can see that rock, but so I don't trust that method at all. It seems more, you know, it doesn't seem right to me, so I'm going to have to think of something better. Okay, onwards and upwards.